Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you've ever felt your heart rate spike trying to navigate a high-stakes multinational project, maybe worrying that your English just isn't quite fluent enough, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating, research-backed report that totally flips the script on international business communication. Our core mission here? It is actually not to teach you how to sound like a native speaker. Instead, we're going to show you exactly how to avoid catastrophic project failures through explicit communication. Because as it turns out, project accidents are almost never caused by bad grammar. They're caused by something much, much more subtle.
So let me ask you a question, and I want you to be completely honest with yourself here. Have you ever been in a high-pressure global meeting? Maybe someone asks if you can finish a really complex task by Friday, and just to be polite and cooperative, you respond with, "I'll try." It's such a natural, relatable response, right? Especially when you want to show you're a team player. But in the world of multinational IT and business projects, those two little words are actually a massive trap.
Well, let's dive right into this because here is the harsh reality. Saying "I'll try" can accidentally turn a polite, best effort intention into a legally binding, committed deadline in your project manager's notes. When you simply meant, "Hey, Friday is my target," the other side very often hears, "I fully commit to Friday." This seemingly innocent little phrase creates massive project risks simply because the meaning you intended and the meaning they actually recorded are entirely different things. So here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with the core communication gap, then we'll look at spoken phrases to avoid, followed by hidden risks in writing. After that, we'll cover standardizing high-stakes scenarios, and finally, clarity over cultural nuance. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the core communication gap. And our whole new way of looking at this revolves around one simple number, 8. You see, business English safety doesn't rely on perfect pronunciation or having this massive vocabulary. It actually relies on your ability to separate exactly 8 distinct business states. If you can master these 8, you immediately relieve all that pressure of needing native-level fluency. So what exactly are these 8 business states? Notice the not equal signs here. They are absolutely crucial. Understanding a proposal does not mean you agree with it. Recommending a solution does not mean you actually have the authority to decide or approve it. Just because you're the one talking about a problem doesn't mean you own the action to fix it. A target is definitely not a commitment, and simply expecting a system to work is not the same as actually verifying it. The source material is crystal clear on this point. Confusing these 8 distinct states in short English responses causes far more damage than any grammar mistake ever will. Moving right along to Section 2, spoken phrases to avoid. These are your everyday meeting traps. Think about how often we use conversational fillers, like, "Yes, yes, I understand." We say this all the time, mostly just to show we're actively listening. But doing this dangerously mixes simple acknowledgement with formal agreement. The listener might actually process your casual yes as, "Great, we have a deal." Instead, try saying, "I understand the proposal, but I haven't agreed to it yet." Do you see how that safely separates the state of understanding from the state of agreement? Here's another huge trap, the phrase, "It may be difficult." Now, in some cultures, particularly in Japanese business contexts, saying something is difficult is actually a polite, indirect way of saying no. But in global English, difficult literally translates to, "It is possible, but it's going to be hard." If you actually mean no, you have to state your constraints directly. You want to say, "We cannot meet Friday's deadline with the current resources." Bam! It removes all the ambiguity. And here's one that trips up a lot of technical experts. Avoid giving a flat "I agree" when you're discussing technical solutions. Why? Because you're accidentally confusing your personal recommendation with a formal project decision. The absolutely crucial point here is to separate the two. Say something like, "I agree personally, but the project owner has not approved it yet." This little tweak protects you from accidentally authorizing something you don't actually have the final power to authorize. Okay, this one is for all the meeting organizers out there. Never ever say any objections and then treat a roomful of dead silence as an official approved. Silence is never consent. And this is especially true in remote meetings where people might have bad connections, their cameras are off, or they're just desperately scrambling to find the mute button. Instead, you need to mandate an explicit response. Say, "I need an explicit response from each workstream. Go, conditional go, or no go." Let's shift gears to Section 3, hidden risks in writing. We're talking specifications and tickets here.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how tiny, simple modal verbs can accidentally act as legally binding guarantees or, on the flip side, totally vague guesses. If you write, "the interface should work," are you just expecting it to work, or have you actually verified it in a test? Instead, write "QA test passed" to show explicit verification. If you write, "users may enter the field," is that a permission you're actively granting, or is it just a technical capability of the system? And if you write, "the batch will finish by 6 a.m., you have just made a commitment. If it's just a plan, you have to label it explicitly as a target completion. And this need for absolute, literal clarity totally extends to how we manage issues. You can't just say an IT ticket is resolved without having a shared organizational definition of what that word means. You have to separate mitigated, which just means there's a temporary workaround, from fix implemented, meaning code was actually changed, and separate that from verified, meaning it was successfully retested. Only when those states are perfectly clear should something move to officially closed.
All right, Section 4, Standardizing High-Stakes Scenarios. If you're in a user acceptance testing environment, saying something looks good it's practically dangerous. Looks good is not acceptance. Instead, you need to state very clearly, the test script passed technically. Business acceptance is still pending. We must always separate the technical completion done by the engineers from the formal business sign-off given by the client. So what happens when things get too deep for the current meeting? People absolutely love to say, "let's discuss this offline." But if you just say that and move on, the issue basically disappears into the void. To prevent this, you want to follow this exact mechanical protocol. Step 1, acknowledge the offline discussion. Step 2, assign a specific owner to it. Step 3, mandate that the owner post the final decision in the formal decision log by a specific time. You're actively managing the state of the action item and keeping it visible. Which brings us to our final section, number 5, clarity over cultural nuance. Universal protocols. Here is an incredibly empowering realization from the research. You do not need to be a cultural chameleon if you just rely on universal explicit project protocols. Think about it. Just because someone speaks fluent English doesn't mean they operate under American or British cultural norms. Just because a culture values hierarchy doesn't mean the team is passive. And really importantly, a lively discussion is not a personal conflict, and an agreement in principle is not a commitment of resources. Explicitly naming the business state cuts right through all of that cultural noise. To make sure you're totally equipped for your very next global meeting, here is a highly actionable checklist for all you meeting organizers. Before you close out any topic, make sure you've explicitly separated the discussion from the final decision. Make sure you've assigned an exact owner, none of this vague "will handle it" stuff. Do a round-robin explicit poll instead of just assuming silence means yes. And finally, double-check those minutes to ensure target dates are clearly distinguished from committed deadlines. Which brings us to a final paradigm-shifting question to leave you with today. In your very next global meeting, are you going to focus your energy on trying to sound perfectly fluent, or are you going to focus on explicitly defining your business state? Remember, clarity and structure are always going to be far more reliable than perfect grammar. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and good luck out there on your next project.